Good day guys, it's Adi here with the new PV2 totem video. This time GGG released a brand new totem skill to the game. It's called Mortar Cannon Totems, and this skill creates a totem which shoots your crossbow grenade skills at the enemies for you. I immediately fell in love with how the skill looks like, and I definitely want to try that on the league start in 0.3 patch. I'm recording this video before the patch release though, so this is not a build guide video. I'm just gonna share my plans on the league start because we don't have any gem information yet, really. We have barely any information about the updated support gems, and most importantly, we have no information about the new passive skill tree, which gets changed so much. So yeah, we can't really make a proper build guide without having proper tools for that. But this plan might still be useful for some of you who might have similar plans for league starts. Could be useful. So the reason why I really want to play this skill is not only because it looks so beautiful, but it's also a totem which uses a cooldown skill, right? So grenade skills is usually like a between 2 to second cooldown skill with multiple cooldown uses, which is really important. And this reminds me of my favorite totem from Path of Exile 1 game, which is Bolatny of Static Totem. It was also like a spell with a pretty short cooldown and multiple cooldown uses. And when you support it with the totem, when you create a new totem, it actually immediately has maximum cooldown uses. So it gets created with refresh cooldown uses. So this totem immediately spams multiple copies of the skill, and then it still has the cooldown going in the background while spamming the first skills. So the difference to the normal totem build is that whenever you summon a new totem, usually you have a bit of a DPS downtime, right? The old totem gets deleted from existence and new totem like appears from the ground. So you lose a bit of a DPS, but in this case, whenever you create a new totem, it actually has a DPS boost because it can spam the skills more frequently than what is gonna be happening afterwards. So it feels actually pretty rewarding to play. There's of course a downside to playing cooldown totems, is that totem has cooldown on your ability of summoning totems, so you can't spam totems non-stop like you usually can. But yeah, they announced that this totem skill will have some extra cooldown recovery rates, and potentially the new passive skill tree might have some extra cooldown recovery rate support. So maybe we'll be able to make like cooldown of a totem summoning not that high. If the cooldown is gonna be like even like 1.5 seconds, it's gonna be actually pretty fine. Like from my experience from PV1. And PV2 is also like a slower paced game, so like hard cooldown probably is not going to be that big of a problem. We'll have to experiment with that, of course. A bit of a disclaimer, it might not work this way, right? Like I'm talking about from my PV1 experience playing cooldown totems. They maybe created PV2 totems in a different way. Maybe they'll have different mechanics, so we'll have to experiment with that, of course, on the league start. But overall, yeah, cooldown totems is really interesting to play. Also, in preparation of league starting, I of course experimented and tried to use like different grenades in the game. I think there is 3 main candidates. It's explosive arrow, which we can see on this video footage. It's just like super default grenade skill. It just shoots grenade, it has pretty small cooldown, quite a lot of cooldown uses, and it just explodes and does damage. Pretty simple. There's also gas grenades, which creates the gas clouds on the ground, which later, to actually do proper damage, needs to be exploded with a detonator skill or with some sort of like ignite source. So also we'll have to experiment with that and see whether we will be able to properly automate this gas detonation. Like people used to play gas grenades with the unique helmet, which allowed you to like auto-ignite everything around you, but we're not sure if that's going to be available in a new league, right? And the most interesting grenade is cluster grenades. It's actually like a massive grenade which creates a bunch of explosions all over the place with a bunch of damage, but it has really long cooldown of 10 seconds by default and only 1 cooldown use. But yeah, so in 0.2 patch we had on the passive tree, notable that gave you +1 cooldown use for all the grenades. So it's really like 2 cooldown uses, and then we also used to have second wind support, which doubles the amount of cooldown uses you have by sacrificing the cooldown recovery though. So yes, already would be able to have like 4 cooldown uses, so you create a new totem, and it spams at least 4 cluster grenades back to back, which is gonna be like massive explosions all over the screen. Really interesting to experiment, but yeah, cooldown might be too brutal. Like, we don't know how much cooldown recovery rate we're gonna be able to have with a new tree. So most likely it's gonna be explosive grenades, cannon totems in the end. That's probably gonna be the plan. But yeah, a lot of experimentation, which is really exciting. I definitely will be sharing all the information I'll be gathering with a new skill. So, like I said, we don't really have the passive tree yet, but we have like a picture of the passive tree, so we can take a look at this for a second. So there's like old tree, is 0.2 patch on the left, and new tree on the right. So interesting that we had totem nodes basically here, here, and here, right? This is bottom left parts of the tree, by the way. This is warrior part, this is mercenary part. So these totem nodes get moved to the left part of misclick. Left part of warrior is gonna be right there now, and instead on this place we're gonna have seemingly ballista nodes. Judging by the picture of the notables, it looks like a ballista visually too. So that's very interesting. And we used to have only 2 grenade clusters on tree. This is grenade cluster, and this is a grenade nodes on passive tree. And right next to these grenade nodes, we have seemingly another ballista cluster. It seems like. It looks like ballista too. So that's, yeah, really interesting. Yeah, like not much analysis we can do with this tree. So these totem nodes will remain the same, and these totem nodes also seem to be the same. But yeah, they add a bunch of new stuff. I can't really notice if there is new totem nodes. Not totem, I mean grenade nodes here. I also got excited about these nodes right next to totem nodes, but I thought it's a totem too, but people say it's apparently flask nodes. It looks like a flask, not like a totem. Which is basically the same picture, honestly. But yeah, so sadly, yeah, with this information, which is like absence of information, basically, we can't really make a passive tree plan. But what we can do is to at least plan the Ascendancy, because we have the information about the updated Ascendancy. It's not in Battle Building yet, so like this information you see on the screen is outdated. But yeah, I was torn between like at least 5 different Ascendancies to like start with for these Mortar Cannon Ballista Totems. That's like 4 words for a skill. And I think my final choice is gonna be Warbringer. Warbringer on a warrior. This one gets really buffed for totems. This first node with Ancestral Spirits, it gives you also +1 totem now, which is really big for totems, right? And they also buff these minions that get summoned together with the totem. They will have like a bigger area of effect. They will have a new minion, I think, that gives like 50% increased damage. And like old minions also basically should be better with area effect. Like, initially I played Warbringer and it was quite disappointing. I mean, these minions from Totems were disappointing, but after the buffs in 0.3 patch, hopefully they finally will feel good. I hope so. Like, obviously this node, which takes portion of your damage from Totems, is a really massive defensive layer. They also buff the Jade node. They make it so that when you get hit, the Jade stacks don't disappear. So they will give you very consistent physical damage mitigation, which is actually really hard to achieve with the current state of armor in the game. But yeah, Encased Jade should help a lot with armor mitigation. And also it gives you like this button you can press, which gives you like a guard, pre-fed guard effect based on your life. And I want to go for like a life build, not energy shield, because again, we have to be in this part of the tree for the totem juice, so we can't really randomly travel to the north to grab a bunch of energy shields, I guess. I guess we can't really do that. And another thing on Warbringer is that like it gives you automatic armor break, potentially with bigger armor break, right? And there will be new notable on passive tree as well, which is somewhere here between warrior and mercenary, which will make it so that the fully broken armor effect will also work for fire damage, not only for physical damage. And again, like most likely we're gonna play fire damage on these grenades. Like I mentioned, like especially explosive grenades is just fire damage by default. So yeah, Warbringer looks really, really spicy with all the buffs. And another reason to play Warbringer is that it's on the same class as Warrior. I mean, it's Warrior, right? So it's the same. You will be able to switch to different Ascendancy. It's possible to do this now in PoE2. And Titan, with the node that gives you increased effect of small passive skills, potentially is going to be extremely powerful as well, right? They add huge amount of small passives on the passive tree, right? We get like 3 times the different clusters of different small nodes on passive tree. Potentially these new ballista nodes that we saw, they could have something useful like cooldown recovery rate for ballista skills maybe. Maybe the new grenade nodes. Again, like I said, most likely we will have to invest as much as possible into cooldown recovery rate. So if we were gonna have some small nodes that give grenade cooldown recovery rates, boosting them with Titan potentially could be like extremely powerful. So basically the plan is, if the minions from Warbringer, from Totems, right? These minion Totems, if they will still feel disappointing and not powerful enough, I could just switch Ascendancy to Titan, and it's just gonna be definitely like really good, like no doubts about it. And another reason, by the way, to start Warrior is honestly, like initially, the first Ascendancy is super powerful with the Smith of Kitava, right? It's called. So yeah, maybe my plan is gonna be to actually, the first Ascendancy is gonna be Smith of Kitava, and then I switch to Warbringer, because we will not be able to play as Totems from the very beginning, like I will mention a little bit later when we're gonna be talking about leveling. But yeah, so these two Ascendancies, Warbringer and Titan, look really spicy. Other Ascendancies I considered is obviously Tactician, right? So a lot of people talk about Tactician. People notice that Tactician gets buffed for Totems on like on the Ascendancy. Namely, the Cannon's Ready node will also give another +1 Totem. But yeah, the Cannon's Ready node is not something that I actually want to take ideally, because like it gives Totems skill speed, which is kind of cool. But yeah, it makes it so that Totems don't automatically shoot, right? Totems only will use their skills when you also shoot a projectile. So map and experience will feel kind of bad. Like I tried to play a similar build type in PoE1 with using focused ballista support, which is basically the same effect as this one. And like it doesn't feel good for mapping. Like it's pretty nice for bossing though. You spam your Totems, you spam attacks, and Totems do even like more damage in the boss. But I kind of like enjoy the chill way of mapping with Totems, right? You just place Totem, it automatically aims at enemies around you, it kills enemies. You don't have to do some self-casting or anything like that. So yeah, they add another node behind the Cannon's Ready nodes in Tactician, which also like buffs Totems, but like I mentioned, I don't like the Cannon's Ready nodes. And another thing, by the way, giving skill speed to Mortar Cannon specifically is not even that beneficial, because they are like these Mortar Cannon Totems, they will not get DPS boost from scaling attack speed or skill speeds at face value, because their attack animation will be limited by the cooldown anyway, right? So like the faster they attack, it will not make them attack more frequently, because they will still have to wait for the cooldown of the grenade itself before they can attack next time. So skill speed and attack speed only will give a little bit of quality of life, where Ballista will attack like a little bit faster, right? Like more fast, but not more frequently, so it will not give DPS boost. So if I would go Tactician, I would go for these changed pin nodes. Like obviously pinning enemies could be really interesting with delayed damage from grenades. Oh, something I forgot to mention about delayed damage, right, is that on the video we saw from GGG, the grenades exploded immediately. They didn't have actually detonation time. There was no delay before detonation. So we don't know if this is the property of the new gem or they used some unique item for that, which they didn't show. Maybe they used some support gem that they didn't really show. So if the grenades explode immediately, then pin node is not so useful. It still will make it so that enemies will get effectively frozen, which gives defenses to us. But specifically the pin part, which immobilizes them, makes them so that it cannot move, and grenades could be more likely to hit them with a delay, might be useless because grenades might not have any delay, right? They also buff banners, so again, like, if I would go tactician, I would go for pin and the banner nodes. There is also like new deflection nodes with the armor, which looks really nice. But overall, I think, because of the reasons I mentioned, I think Warbringer is still nicer and more interesting to use than tactician with Mortar Cannon Totems. Another thing I was considering is just good old gemling. Gemling is just generally good. They also changed it so that like this node will give you, I think, crit immunity. I think this node, right? Yeah. So yeah, quality of skills is always like good to have, like double the attributes, bonuses and extra levels. Yeah, actually, level scaling with totems is not even that interesting anymore because they don't have their own weapon, right? They will scale with your weapon, so we will not need to invest as much as possible into levels. So yeah, I think gemling is can be considered, but still not as good. There is like completely unexplored territory. They announced that Witch Hunter will have 100 weapon skill slots, so you will be able to have like basically 2 completely different trees. And the weapon swap is going to be instant now. So this is very interesting to think about, but it's not going to be a league start for me because like you gotta come up with some crazy combinations first. Like maybe somehow we will be able to in the future use Witch Hunter, but not on league start, I think. And of course the like all-time favorite for most players for the league start is Deadeye. Deadeye is just fast, right? It has movement speed, skill speed, extra projectile, which is extra grenade, like a lot of damage. On Deadeye, you naturally can scale evasion, which is also the new mechanic deflection, which makes it so that you take less damage from hits in combination with this tailwind, which also can give you like less damage on hits. Can be powerful defensively, speed-wise, and damage-wise, but again, like I mentioned, scaling skill speed for Mortar Cannon Ballists is not that beneficial because they're gonna be limited by cooldown anyway, so I still decided to stay away from skill speed, attack speed scaling of Deadeye, so yeah, I decided to go with Warbringer, potentially Titan, with initial start through the Smith of Kitava. That's probably gonna be the plan. So how to level up, right? I tried different leveling. I did a test run with just grenade skills. It felt pretty okay-ish, like not the worst, but definitely not the best. I tried leveling with just crossbow skills, with like fragmentation rounds, incendiary shots, the like lightning bolts, I forgot what's it called, but which also actually get changed a lot. So yeah, crossbow leveling didn't feel like the best to me either. I also tried bow leveling with lightning arrow, lightning rod, potentially Orb of Storms combo. This is actually something I recommended in the previous league start in 0.2 patch with artillery ballista leveling. But yeah, it also felt kind of like underpowered on the league start scenario when you have like pretty bad weapons and like almost no items. For the first like act 1 and 2, it gets way faster from the like second half of second act onwards. But yeah, initially it didn't feel that good. So what felt the best, honestly, is just a good old melee leveling. Just melee leveling, yeah. So two-hander mace, this is what I plan to start with. Ah, by the way, so I forgot to mention, again, we have no gem information, but for some reason on P2DB website, Mortar Cannon has tier 11 information right here. So if this is correct, if this skill is tier 11, which means it will mean that we can only use it starting from level 41. So yeah, we need to level up with something else until level 41. So this is why we need to come up with a different way of leveling. So yeah, I plan to level up with melee and switch to Mortal Ballista at level 41, pretty much. I plan to completely change the whole tree at level 41, which actually requires you to have a decent amount of gold, which means you will not be able to really spend that much gold on like a Gamba vendor, or you will have to farm additional gold by rerunning the same zone a couple of times by the time you reach around level 41. But generally, I already tried strategies with leveling where I switch around level 40 to totems, and usually you can have like enough gold basically for the full tree swap. It's not really a problem in PvE so far. So yeah, it's just default melee leveling. This is kind of like something like that is gonna be my tree. Again, this is old tree. This is 0.2 patch tree. We don't have access to a new tree, so maybe we're gonna have some better nodes to spec into. But yeah, we just get take some damage, some skill speed, some armor here and there, some extra damage, some strength to get extra life, and some extra damage here. And this is level 41 exactly on the tree. So this is probably gonna be something like the tree I will have before I will be switching to Ballista. The skills I'm gonna be using is for clear speed we have basically Bone Shatter Explosions, and for single target we have Mace Strike. Mace Strike is like a default attack skill which you get as soon as you equip the two-hander mace. Like, it's not a skill gem, you need to stock it separately. So, in order for Bone Shatter to work, it basically creates like a massive explosions with impact, shockwave support, and magnified effects. But in order to be able to have these explosions, you need to first make so that enemies are primed for stun. So we use a rolling slam, potentially with overpower support, which increases stun build-up, in order to make like at least one enemy in the back to become primed for stun. Enemies become primed for stun. They have like a indicator above their heads. It's pretty noticeable that they're about to get stunned. So yeah, you will be able to use Bone Shatter and to automatically stun and explode a bunch of enemies around them. That's a really smooth way of leveling and really powerful with really crappy items and crappy weapons, honestly. Like with my test runs, it felt kind of like the best for the first like 2 acts. So yeah, single target, just default Mace Strike. You just stand in front of the boss and like just stupidly attack it with your auto attack. Eventually, you might consider switching to Perfect Strike. This is what most people do with these support gems. But yeah, Perfect Strike is like a channeling skill, and which you need to release at proper timing. So it actually has some skill required to use this skill. So you might want to consider just going with Mace Strike all the way until the whole swap, honestly. It's not gonna be too bad. And yeah, eventually, in order to prime enemies for stun, instead of Rolling Slam, you might want to start using Leap Slam instead with overpower support. By the way, I forgot to mention Rolling Slam, you just want to attack enemy with the first portion of the attack. Rolling Slam has like, it's pretty long animation skill, and it has 2 attacks to it. So yeah, just the first attack already most likely will prime enemies for stun. Sometimes you might have to rebalance the amount of damage you do in order to be able to like prime enemy for stun with 1 hit, so that you will be able to use Bone Shatter to explode the whole pack. So it's also a bit tricky, but if you properly set everything up, it feels like the smoothest leveling for Warrior or even for Mercenary Ascendancies, at least in my opinion, yeah, in my personal experience. And then, so yeah, like I said, for leveling, I plan to go hardcore and maybe First Ascendancy. Like, you don't really get much on First Ascendancy on Warbringer or even Titan, so I thought maybe Smith of Kitava initially can give you like a lot of resistances, or I don't know, just a raw boost from the very first Ascendancy. So maybe the first Ascendancy is going to be Smith of Kitava for me, and then I will switch on second Ascendancy into Totem parts of Warbringer. Maybe I'll go Warbringer right away. But yeah, we can be pretty flexible here. And once we switch, again, we have no idea about the new passive tree, right? Maybe there was gonna be some nodes that we can take that are gonna be way better, but this is like level 43. I think the tree should probably look something like that. So here I try to take the totem juice here, totem nodes here, and grenades nodes here and here. Yeah. maybe it's gonna look very different with the new clusters on tree. Maybe there's gonna be something to take that is more important. Maybe these nodes will be completely changed. But this is the current plan for leveling on the league start for me. So another thing is, if for some reason Mortar Cannons will feel bad, underpowered, you know, like not properly balanced in a bad way, then we still will be able to, like with these Ascendancies, with Wardbringer is just generally good for totems. So I'll be able to just switch to, for example, Artillery Ballista pretty easily, because it's also like projectile damage, kind of like grenades damage, which is also projectile damage. Maybe even to melee totems. So yeah, I'll be pretty flexible with the plan. But yeah, I want to go all in on Mortar Cannon grenades, ballista totems. If it's actually like will not work at all, then yeah, it's gonna be quite easy to switch to some other totems. Speaking of changes to other totems, right? There was actually massive changes. They made it so that pretty much all the totems, they actually scale with your equipped weapon now, instead of having their own weapon. So what exactly that means, right? It means that we will not really need to scale the level of totems as much as we can. We used to play totems by trying to scale their, like, the skill level by, like, at least level 30, right? Ideally even level 40, so that their flat damage on their own weapon would be boosted by this a lot. So now levels only will scale the more damage multiplier that the skill has, most likely. That's how it's gonna work. Again, we don't have information about gems. But I expect it to be basically like that, with the changes to the fact that like they use your weapon. Initially, most likely it's gonna be harder to get to the same damage numbers, like especially in League Star scenario or SSF scenario, because it's gonna be harder to get like similar damage numbers on the weapon as totems used to have with extra levels. But eventually, like, it probably will have higher ceiling, right? If you can craft like a really good weapon, and your totems will be using that, it probably will end up having more damage, you know? But again, like, we don't have enough information. Another really big positive thing about it is the fact that we don't need to scale levels, is that the mana sustain will be way easier now for totems. Like, previously we had to use level 40 totem, and each totem would use like 1000 mana. And you're like, wow, how do I even summon a totem? So you had to have like huge investment into mana sustain on passive tree, maybe blood magic with a bunch of life regen. So yeah, no more. We don't need to do this anymore, which will feel like a relief. But again, we probably will sacrifice damage for this, at least initially. So there is that. But overall, very experimental league start for me. Again, this video has been recorded before the league starts, so I'm sharing my plan. It's not exactly build guides video. I will be streaming on Twitch with all my progression, by the way. If you want to check out how Cannon Ballista work, you can always go there. I will definitely try to record more videos for YouTube with updates on how exactly those Mortar Cannons feel. And with potentially changes, like with the passive tree, if it's going to be decent or even good, I definitely will make a build guide for this. If not, we're going to be switching to different totems and updating the build guide for them. But this is the plan, and I'm really excited to league start on 0.3 patch, which starts tomorrow. And hope you guys also will enjoy totems as much as I do, and please take care of your totems always, and see you on the league start. Bye bye.